Have you ever felt something that wasn't yours? A sudden wave of anxiety in a crowded room. An unexplained heaviness while walking past someone. Laughter that erupts from your throat only because everyone else is laughing. Emotions are not private. They travel. They attach. They infect. Most of the time, you don't notice it happening. You enter a space, maybe it's an office, maybe a metro, maybe a stadium, and your nervous system adjusts itself based on invisible cues. Tension in someone's shoulders, the blank stare of a man lost in thought, a forced smile. Your body reads these signs long before your brain understands them. This is not poetry. It's neurobiology. Inside your brain, there are specialized neurons called mirror neurons. Their job? To simulate what others are feeling. When someone winces in pain, your mirror neurons light up as if you're in pain. When someone smiles genuinely, your brain releases the same feel-good chemicals. This system evolved for survival, for connection, for synchronization. But here's where it gets strange. You don't have to know a person for their emotion to influence you. You don't even have to speak the same language. A glance, a scream, a posture. That's all it takes. Humans are emotional receivers. But we're also transmitters. You yawn, someone next to you yawns. That's biology. But if you panic and someone else starts panicking too, that's contagion. The scientific term is emotional contagion. It refers to how emotional states spread between individuals. And it works faster than reason, logic, or words. You don't decide to feel it. It just happens. In fact, by the time you become aware of the emotion, it's already affected your body, your pulse, your breath, your focus. This was once necessary for survival. Imagine a group of early humans around a fire. One of them suddenly hears a predator. His fear spikes. He tenses. Others around him feel that tension instantly. They don't ask questions. They don't need facts. They get up and run. That split-second response could mean the difference between life and death. The individual feels, the group reacts. That's how we survived. Fast forward to now. You're in an elevator. Someone walks in, clearly agitated. Tight jaw, restless movements, eyes darting. No one says a word, but within seconds, the whole energy in that space shifts. You feel uneasy. Your breathing changes. Your mind becomes alert. Again, this is not about drama. It's not about sensitivity. It's about systems. The human nervous system evolved not just to interpret direct danger, but to absorb the emotional cues of others. This means that you are constantly influenced by people you know, and by people you've never met, and not just in person. Even in the digital space, a tweet, a photo, a comment section full of rage. These aren't just content. They are containers of emotion, and your brain treats them like real experiences. You might think, I'm just scrolling. But your nervous system is syncing to each emotional frequency. You see whether you like it or not. Here's the uncomfortable truth. You are being shaped every day by emotions that did not start with you. You are reacting to fear, anger, joy, envy, pride, some of which isn't even your own. And if you're not conscious of it, you become a carrier. You pass it on. At home, at work, on your timeline. We talk about viruses spreading through the air, but emotions, they spread through attention. Through silence, through presence, through the look in your eyes when someone walks into the room. You are always transmitting. The only question is, what? Human history didn't start with words. It started with reactions. A sudden noise, a narrowing of the eyes, a shift in posture. Long before we spoke, we felt, and more importantly, we copied what others felt. In early human groups, survival depended on group coherence. If one person sensed danger, the rest had to respond immediately. There was no time for debate. No time to ask, are you sure it's a predator? The group moved together. One emotion triggered a collective response. This wasn't culture. It was instinct. Our ancestors didn't just share fire. They shared fear. They shared relief. They shared trust. You can still see traces of this today in stadiums, in protests, in churches, in battlefields. Emotion as a binding force. But as societies grew, emotion wasn't just about survival anymore. It became a tool, a technology, a language that leaders, storytellers, and institutions could engineer. Ancient shamans learned to stir fear and awe through ritual. Priests crafted ceremonies to produce guilt, ecstasy, or submission. Rulers used public executions not just to punish, but to create shared fear. The power wasn't in the sword. It was in the emotional reaction that followed. In ancient Greece, theater wasn't entertainment. It was civic training. Audiences sat together to feel grief, rage, or catharsis together. They cried for fictional heroes because it taught them something real. That human emotion is universal. And that shared feeling creates a stronger society. Rome took it further. The Colosseum wasn't just a spectacle. It was a machine for emotional regulation. The crowd came to feel together, to release frustration, to indulge cruelty, to feel power collectively. It wasn't about the gladiators. It was about what the people needed to feel. And the emperors understood this. Control emotion, and you control the crowd. Fast forward centuries, different religions, same mechanics. Holy men, saints, preachers, all carriers of controlled emotional experiences. The miracle wasn't just walking on water. It was making thousands feel awe at the same time. Even wars were marketed through emotion. Rage against the enemy, pride in the flag. Grief turned into purpose. Over time, civilization got more complex, but emotional contagion never went away. It just evolved. Then came philosophy, and with it, a counterforce: awareness. Stoic philosophers saw emotion not as something to suppress, but as something to observe. They understood the contagious nature of emotional energy, and they warned against being pulled by it unconsciously. Marcus Aurelius wrote not to an audience, but to himself, trying to remain still while chaos moved around him. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. The Stoics weren't emotionless. They just refused to be puppets of collective moods. They knew, when fear spreads, it blinds. When rage spreads, it burns. When joy spreads, it can mislead. They practiced a kind of inner quarantine, letting emotion be felt, but not infect decision. But most people don't live like Stoics. We move through crowds, through screens, through rituals, and every day we absorb emotional codes without realizing it. A tense subway car, a neighbor's grief, a national tragedy. We internalize emotions that were never ours to begin with. Sometimes we use it for good. Shared grief can create solidarity. Shared joy can build community. Shared anger can spark revolution, but it cuts both ways. Crowds can laugh at cruelty. Nations can unite behind hatred. Groups can cheer violence if the emotional current is strong enough. And by the time we realize it, we've already participated. Humanity has always been emotionally wired. But unlike ancient times, we now have the chance to observe it. To see the systems beneath the surface, to ask not just, what am I feeling? But why am I feeling this? And who did I get it from? Emotion is not just inside you, it's all around you. Layered into history, built into architecture, programmed into rituals. To understand ourselves today, we have to look at the emotions we've been taught to feel. And question, did I choose this feeling? Or did I just catch it? Emotion is not just a human response, it's a tool. And throughout history, the most powerful individuals have understood that better than anyone else. Control, emotion control, behavior. You don't need truth. You don't even need logic. If you can make people feel, you can make them move. Let's start with politics. A dictator doesn't rise because his policies are brilliant. He rises because his words tap into fear, anger, or hope. Crowds don't follow spreadsheets. They follow adrenaline. Hitler didn't just speak, he ignited.
He knew how to raise a room's temperature.
How to direct years of shame and pain into focused rage. His speeches were structured like rituals. Build tension, point to an enemy, offer a dream. It wasn't logic that got millions to march. It was emotional contagion, weaponized. And the formula didn't end with him. Martin Luther King stood on the opposite side of the moral spectrum, but he understood the same principle. A crowd feels before it thinks. I have a dream. He didn't list policies. He painted an emotion, hope. He built a moment where thousands felt the same thing, at the same time, and believed it was possible. The strategy is universal, whether it's a revolution or a regime. Emotion is always the first domino, but it doesn't stop with politicians. Artists, musicians, actors, directors, they carry something even more dangerous: intimacy. When a musician steps on stage and thousands sing back their lyrics, that's not just entertainment, that's transfer. Anxiety, longing, love, grief. Artists turn private emotion into public resonance, and the audience gives themselves over willingly. You cry during a film, even though you know it's fiction. You feel inspired by a song, even though it's about someone else's life. This isn't manipulation, it's chemistry. Humans crave emotional synchronization. We want to feel what others are feeling. We're built for it. Now, enter the modern carriers, influencers. No need for a microphone. No need for a crowd. Just a phone. A story, a reel, a live stream, and suddenly, a stranger's emotional state reaches millions. A panic attack on TikTok. A public meltdown on Instagram. A motivational monologue on YouTube.com. The emotion spreads, and because it's raw and filtered, it feels more real than traditional media. But here's the catch. These transmissions aren't always conscious. Sometimes influencers are just leaking emotion, not crafting it. And the audience? They're not just watching. They're absorbing. Every viral moment contains emotion. That's what makes it viral. A child laughing. A man breaking down. A stranger yelling in a grocery store. These moments pass through millions of devices, but they land somewhere deeper. In the nervous systems of people you'll never meet. Think about that. One person's breakdown, filmed and uploaded, can shift the mood of an entire population. Not because it's important, but because it feels like it is. And then there's the crowd itself. A stadium, a protest, a concert, a funeral. These are emotional ecosystems. You walk in with one mood, but you leave with another, shaped by everyone else. Cheering becomes easier when everyone else is doing it. So does rage. So does violence. Mob mentality isn't magic. It's emotional contagion scaled. That's why leaders engineer it. They plan the music, the lighting, the slogans, because they know. You don't have to convince someone who already feels aligned, You just give them a direction. So who's in control? It's easy to blame the system, but the truth is simpler. Anyone who commands attention also commands emotion. And in the digital world, attention is currency. That means emotion has become a market. The more emotional your content is, the more it travels. Anger works best, then fear, then joy, if it's loud enough. Nuance, that doesn't trend. The people we watch, follow, and imitate, they don't just entertain us. They shape our emotional reality. One post can make your day better, or ruin it. One tweet can shift the tone of a city. One moment can become a movement. And most of it happens silently, instantly, without question. In a world where emotions travel faster than facts, the most powerful people are not the ones with weapons or votes. They're the ones who know how to make you feel, again and again and again. Some emotions creep in. Anger doesn't. Anger kicks the door open. It's immediate, visceral, undeniable. And out of all the emotions, anger spreads the fastest. It bypasses analysis. It overrides empathy. It floods the body with adrenaline and the mind with certainty. That's why it works. Biologically, anger is a survival mechanism. In early human history, if someone threatened your tribe, your food, or your safety, anger was the trigger that got you to act. It wasn't about morality. It was about reaction speed. Fight or die. The problem? We no longer live in caves, but the circuitry hasn't changed. You read a comment online that feels like an attack. You snap. You raise your voice. You post back. The body doesn't distinguish between a physical threat and a digital one. Your nervous system reacts the same way. That's how primal this is. In modern society, anger is both feared and monetized. It starts with platforms. The algorithm favors it. Why? Because angry people engage. They scroll longer. They comment more. They share faster. Anger generates clicks. Clicks generate profit. That's why rage travels faster than calm. Outrage becomes a business model. And it's not just tech. Politicians use it. News channels thrive on it. Movements weaponize it. Why spend time building slow, thoughtful content when you can just trigger people and watch the numbers spike? A headline doesn't need to be true. It just needs to be infuriating. Once people are angry, their logic drops. Their identity takes over. They stop listening. They start reacting. That's when control becomes easy. But anger isn't always negative. Let's be clear. Some of the biggest shifts in history began with anger. Revolutions, uprisings, civil rights movements. Oppression creates pressure. Anger becomes the release valve. People stand up, speak out, refuse to stay silent. That kind of anger, when it's focused, aware, and directed, can be transformative. But most anger isn't that. Most of it is shallow, quick, performative. It explodes, burns, and fades, and often it hits the wrong target. Think about online mob behavior. Someone says something questionable. Within minutes, a wave of digital pitchforks forms. People pile on not because they've analyzed the issue, but because they felt something. It feels righteous. It feels powerful. And it feels safe because the crowd is with you. But here's the twist. It's not always about justice. Sometimes it's about belonging. Anger gives people a sense of unity, a common enemy, a temporary purpose. And for some, that's addictive. There's a term, moral outrage. It sounds noble, and sometimes it is, but it also gets hijacked. You're not angry because you discovered an injustice. You're angry because everyone else is, and you don't want to be left out. That's emotional contagion in its rawest form. The moment you stop questioning why you're angry, you become a vessel for someone else's agenda. This is where Stoic philosophy becomes relevant again. Epictetus said, "When someone irritates you, realize that it's your own opinion that disturbs you." The Stoics weren't emotionless. They just knew emotion is dangerous without awareness. They practiced pause, distance, reflection. They asked, is this anger useful? Is it even mine? What will it cost to act on it? Questions that most people skip. Here's the reality. You will feel anger. You should. But unless you're aware of what it's doing to you, you are not the one driving. You are being driven by headlines, by comment sections, by manipulated images, by leaders who know exactly which buttons to press. And if you're not careful, you'll spend your life reacting to other people's emotions instead of choosing your own. So what do? You pause. You check. You ask, is this real? Is it mine? Is it useful? You don't suppress the anger. You study it. Because once you understand it, you can decide what to do with it. And that is how you stop being a carrier and start being a filter. Emotion used to need proximity. A look, a voice, a crowd. Now, a signal is enough. We don't just catch feelings in rooms anymore. We catch them through screens. Scroll long enough and you'll start to feel things you didn't plan to feel. Panic, jealousy, rage. Sometimes joy, but not as often. The digital space didn't kill emotional contagion. It upgraded it. Every platform you use, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, X, is built around one thing, reaction. Not reflection, not understanding, just reaction. A video goes viral not because it's important, but because it triggers something. A 10-second meltdown, a dramatic reunion, a comment war. You weren't angry before you opened the app. Now your jaw is clenched. You're thinking about someone you've never met. You're writing responses to people you'll never see, and none of it was your emotion to begin with. This is the architecture of digital emotion. The algorithm doesn't know what's true. It knows what spreads. And emotions, especially fast, unfiltered ones, spread better than facts. You're more likely to share something that shocks you than something that asks you to think. And this makes emotion programmable. It can be optimized, engineered, targeted, not just by people, but by systems. Take an influencer. They cry on camera. Maybe it's real. Maybe it's a strategy. You feel empathy and you share it. That emotion has now jumped from one nervous system to another via pixels. Not because you know them, not because you trust them, but because your brain can't help it. The mirror neurons fire. The story feels intimate. The feedback loop begins. You are emotionally syncing with a stranger, and you're not alone. Thousands, sometimes millions, are doing it at the same time. This is emotional contagion at scale. Now zoom out. Think about a trending hashtag, a viral outrage, a collective grief after a celebrity dies, or a global panic triggered by one video. These are not just moments. They are mass emotional events. And the strange part, they don't even need to be real time. Something can happen today and trigger a wave tomorrow because it feels urgent. Emotion is no longer attached to time or place. It floats in the digital space, waiting to be picked up. And when enough people pick it up, it becomes reality. This creates a new problem, emotional fatigue. You are not designed to feel this much, this fast, this often. You were built for one tribe, one fire, one rhythm. Now, you feel the grief of strangers, the anger of nations, the fear of algorithms. Every day, your system is overloaded, and the cost is clarity. You can't tell which emotions are yours anymore. You just feel something all the time, and that's the point. If you're always reacting, you're easier to control. If you're emotionally exhausted, you're less likely to question. If you're constantly plugged in, your emotional state is no longer yours. It belongs to the feed. This isn't about quitting the internet. It's about awareness. Ask yourself, why am I feeling this? Did I choose this mood? Or did I scroll into it? What's been downloaded into my nervous system without permission? When you watch 15 reels in a row, you've absorbed 15 emotional states. You think you're bored, but maybe you're just full. Here's a concept: emotional hygiene. We talk about mental health, but what about emotional boundaries? You don't let everyone into your home. Why let them into your bloodstream? You curate your clothes, your music, your diet. Why not your feelings? If emotion is data, then you are a system that needs filtering. Not everything deserves your energy. Not every feeling is yours to carry, especially when it's been engineered to reach you. The digital world is not neutral. It is charged. With design, with bias, with emotional intention, you are not just a user. You are a receiver, a conductor, a potential amplifier, and you have a choice: to spread what you feel, or to pause, observe, and decide what's actually worth feeling. You wake up. You check your phone. Before your feet hit the floor, you've already seen 6 faces, 3 opinions, 1 tragedy, and 1 piece of breaking news. You haven't even spoken yet, but you're already feeling something. That's how fast it happens. We used to wake up to the weather. Now we wake up to other people's emotions. The question is no longer, am I affected? You are. The real question is, who's in control? Are you choosing your emotional state? Or are you downloading it without realizing? Most people don't notice. They move through their day reacting to headlines, to moods, to energy, to noise. They smiled because someone smiled. They yell because someone yelled. They get angry because everyone else is angry. They become carriers. Unpaid, unaware messengers of someone else's emotional virus. And it doesn't feel wrong, it feels normal, because everyone else is doing the same thing. But if you pause it, you step back, you might see it. The loop, the spread, the manipulation. You'll start noticing how certain people always make you feel drained, how certain apps always leave you irritated, how certain environments amplify emotions you don't even believe in. And once you see it, you can start asking better questions. Is this real? Is this mine? Is this useful? This is where philosophy matters. The Stoics lived in chaotic times, wars, plagues, political executions, but they believed in a kind of power that couldn't be taken away. Emotional discipline, not suppression. Discipline. They didn't try to kill emotion. They studied it. They looked it in the eye and said, "You don't get to steer." Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." He wasn't being poetic. He was practicing immunity, a mental quarantine, a boundary between his own mind and the collective madness of the crowd. Today, that boundary is harder to build because the crowd is everywhere. In your phone, in your feed, in your head, but the principle still applies. You don't have to feel everything you're exposed to. You don't have to carry every mood you see. You don't have to join every wave of outrage, grief, or hype. You can pause. You can filter. You can respond instead of react. And that's what separates noise from clarity. Because here's the truth. Emotions are information. They tell you something, but they don't always tell you the truth. Fear doesn't always mean danger. Anger doesn't always mean injustice. Sadness doesn't always mean something is wrong. Excitement doesn't always mean something is right. That's your job. To decode the signal, to choose the meaning, to decide what gets to stay. So where does that leave you? You're still a transmitter. You always will be. Your presence affects people whether you speak or not. The way you walk into a room, the way you listen, the way you handle pressure, it all spreads. You're not just living your life. You're contributing to the emotional atmosphere around you, whether you like it or not. So the final choice is simple. Do you want to be a mirror or a filter? Do you want to catch and pass along whatever emotion hits you first? Or do you want to process it, challenge it, shape it? Because one path is easy. It requires nothing but reactivity. The other takes work. It takes awareness, intention, discomfort. But it also gives you power, not over others, over yourself. You don't need to control the world. Just don't let the world control you. That's enough. That's how you stay human. In a system built for reaction, that's how you stay clean. In a world full of contagious emotion,